Good afternoon, America. Today's broadcast takes us back 31 years to the 1st of May, 1994. A day unbeknownst to Ayrton Senna, where he would be starting, it would be his last. Throughout history, deaths occur. Throughout racing history, many deaths have occurred. Another death occurred that Sunday. This death shocked the world. It shocked everyone. They all asked the same question. How could this happen? How could Ayrton Senna lose his life just like that? That question, America, has been asked for far too long. And today, we will answer that question.
Ayrton Senna was perhaps one of the greatest racers F1 has ever seen. Born on March 21st, 1960, Senna made his debut in F1 at the age of 13. And by 1984, he was in F1, and by his fourth year, he won a championship with McLaren, with 2 championships following soon after. This success made him the face of Brazilian racing in a time where Brazil had a lot of struggles. To start our investigation, we will be going to a fan who was on that fateful day in Imola.
Yeah, I can say I remember like it was yesterday. For being a racing fan all my life, I can say with very little doubt that it was easily the most tragic I had ever seen firsthand. The weekend started out like any other. I was at the qualifiers and it was a slow start to the day, but as the third race of the season, everyone there was still pretty excited for what's to come. I think if I remember correctly, Ayrton Senna was having a bit of a rough start to the season, but that's to be expected when you're joining a new team. To say that qualifiers went south quickly feels like an understatement. Before he could even realize what was going on, Rubens crashed, but luckily for him and the rest of the racing field, his injuries didn't seem all too terrible. However, where things really took a turn was with Roland Ratzenberger. Ratzenberger was this new hotshot rookie coming in who's been working his way up the F1 ladder for as long as many of us could remember at the time. And so this was his third race of the season, and he also got a slow start, but as a rookie of F1, it was to be expected. What wasn't expected, though, is that in second day of qualifying, Roland Ratzenberger would take a turn too sharp, crashing his car into a wall. At that moment, the entire racing field went silent because I think deep down we all knew that there's very little chance that he was going to make it out of that alive. We saw the stretcher quickly come out, and he was raced to a hospital. Rumors spread around the crowd quickly that Ayrton Senna went to go see Roland Ratzenberger because player safety had always been at the forefront of what Senna was as a racer. And so the next day when we saw Senna at the race, we could tell that look on his face that the next day that Roland Ratzenberger did not make it. I think that really left a heavy heart on Senna as his frown could be seen from across the entire field. The next day, the entire mood was off. The weather wasn't great for racing, and even Ayrton Senna himself seemed like he couldn't wipe the frown off of his face. So I think for many people, especially myself, it was a surprise to see him get in his car to start the race. And at the start of the race, he'd gone faster than he had the entire season. He'd even taken a lead. All of our hopes were dashed when we saw him miss the turn and fly straight into the wall. I think personally that loss of Ratzenberger really played a huge impact on Senna during that day. I think to be a racer, you have to be in the right mental state, and experiencing a death such as that seen by Ratzenberger on Senna is one that can't just be thrown to the side. It was clear that Ratzenberger's death played a huge part on Senna because after going through the crash site, they found an Austrian flag that Senna had planned to use to honor Ratzenberger. The best thing that could have happened that day to save Senna from his crash was to keep him off the field.
Now, I have to admit, there were lots of emotional factors that led to Senna's ultimate crash, but it's impossible to deny the fact that mechanical failures were the main reason for his death. The most common theory about the crash is that Ayrton Senna's steering column collapsed while he went around the Tamburello turn. Even the official Italian government report about the crash stated that the steering column was the main factor of his turn, but the case was overturned in 2006 after heavy debate. The steering column was custom made for Senna, as he did not like the stock Williams Racing FW16 column that was in his car. He always complained about it being too bulky and made him feel uncomfortable. So the lead designer, Adrian Newley, created a new column that would be narrower and slimmer for Ayrton to drive with. However, while creating this, they overlooked various factors that could have caused some safety issues in the column. Combining a new narrow and fragile steering column with some shoddy welding on the Williams Racing part combined for one of the worst crashes in F1 history. It was clear that Ayrton Senna did not enjoy his short-lived time at Williams Racing, and main speculation was due to the terrible engineering part on the part of the Williams Racing crew. After 3 years of dominant display from Williams because of their active suspension, and combined with a retiring Nigel Mansell, they were looking for a new star to lead their team. At the same time that Ayrton Senna joined the club, the FIA, otherwise known as the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile in French, decided to make new changes to the F1 regulations. While one of the new changes required the F1 cars to have a new fuel pump, the regulations specifically targeted Williams Racing, especially their active suspension. They required the new active suspension to be banned in F1 and for Williams to return to a new passive suspension, making them completely rebuild their cars over the summer. While all of the other cars only had to make simple changes to their fuel valve, Williams had to make a change to their entire suspension, causing a quickly made and poorly constructed F1 car in the short amount of time that they had. The FW16 wasn't capable of making the same amount of maneuvers that the FW15C was able to do, as it was hastily constructed like I mentioned earlier. Some of the flaws with the car were the aerodynamics of it, such as the front wing that was sensitive to ride height and would kind of wobble all over the place. When a piece of leftover debris struck Senna's rear tire after the crash by Benetton driver JJ Leto on lap 1, he lost complete control over his car. As he tried to adjust his steering to make the wheels go back on course, he hit a second bump in the track, causing him to go further off into the dirt and then finally into the concrete barrier. This incident could have been completely avoided if it weren't for the engineering failures of the FW16 car.
Now that we've seen why the car crashed and the mechanical failures, as well as the external emotional factors leading up to the crash, we need to talk about the serious safety flaws that took place in F1 back in the day. It certainly took place. When Senna lost control, there was not enough runoff space for him to crash. In today's day and age, there is lots of space in between the track and the wall to prevent any serious impact when the racer goes right off the track. A huge reason as to why Senna's crash was so fatal was because his head was out in the open, not protected by anything. As you can see in this picture, you can clearly see the yellow helmet of Ayrton Senna. Today, that would not happen. The racer's head is not out for everything and anything to hit it. In today's, there was this thing called the halo, which prevents any sort of debris, track debris, whether it be a tire, any crazy scenario of where the driver would be struck in the head. His helmet was made of a very fragile fiberglass, so when things struck it, it was easily pierced. This happened twice in two places on his helmet. Once where an upright assembly pierced his helmet. This caused fatal skull fractures. Also, when a jagged piece of suspension pierced Ayrton Senna's visor, it caused a major laceration above his right eye. In today's F1, a hands device ensures that the driver's head remains in place and does not have the ability to whip back and forth, front and backwards, which would cause, in this case, head trauma. Though many have speculated what truly happened on that fateful day, we'll never truly know what happened. After the race, the Grand Prix Drivers Association was established to make sure that fateful things like that never happen. To this day, the legacy of Ayrton Senna lives on, and for the racing community, his memory is everlasting.